Hi all, I got a simple but incredibly fun build that I like to call the Invis Ranger for Prismatic Hunter. I've been using it a ton. I've been testing out everywhere. The new class item, Exotic Quest, Dual Destiny, Overthrow, Solar Expert, Lost Sectors where I was 30 power below recommended. I 2-man an Expert Nightfall where I was 20 below the power recommended and did some solo legendary campaign missions with it. Build has been great in all of it. It's so fun and really excels with having teammates, but does great in solo content. It's strong at range with clearing ads, controlling them, getting clutch reses, and has decent survivability. A little weaker on the single target damage side, but what you bring to the table for your fire team makes up for it for sure. To start us off, for our exotic armor, we're taking Gear Falcons. This exotic makes it so every time we come on a being Invis, our void weapon gains volatile rounds. If we get a finisher, we get bonus weapon damage, and our allies and us get increased class regen and an overshield reserve. Allowing us to get volatile rounds after going Invis works perfect with our stylish execution aspect and our withering blade melee. Plus the bonus weapon damage really makes the already OP gun we're using even better. We can now get exotic class items that can roll with 2 different perks. I unfortunately didn't get the one I wanted for this build yet, but the one that will make this build even better and replace Gear Falcons will be the Spirit of Gear Falcons and Ophidians. For our stats for this build, I would prioritize resilience and mobility. We're getting our melee and nades back so fast because of Fragments and Prismatic, and then we're also getting our super back incredibly fast because of how many orbs of power we're generating with this build. For our super, we're going to take Deadfall. This is so good for locking down enemies, grouping them together, and so we can clear them quickly, which works really well with this build. For our abilities, we're going to take Gambler's Dodge. This is great, just recharges our melee ability, which we'll be using all of the time. Jump is any preference you want, but I prefer triple jump, especially for PvE. And then Withering Blade, this is so good. So we basically 2 melee attacks, which makes it so we can go invisible like twice if we need to, and we can debuff 2 separate targets. Even helps to stun overload champions twice, which is so nice. Dustfield Nade for a grenade helps with quick dark energy for Prismatic, locking down targets, and again for overload champions. Aspects, we're going to be taking Threaded Spectre. It just goes really well with this build, especially with our options we have for Prismatic. What this does is it makes it so when we dodge, we create a little clone that distracts enemies. This has gotten me out of a lot of tough situations. It's fantastic. And when it takes enough damage, it spawns little threadlings that seek out foes. Our biggest one here is Stylish Executioner. Goes with this build so well. Defeating a target affected by any elemental debuff grants invisibility and true sight. True sight is like wall hacks basically, but the big thing here is invisibility. So anytime they're affected with, stasis, or which we'll be using all the time, Withering Blade specifically, we can go Invis. This is great for getting clutch reses that you need to with Prismatic, just surviving at times if you need to, especially with Gambler's Dodge. We basically can get these back like at 3 or 4, so it's fantastic to have. Even if you don't kill the target with Withering Blade, if you kill within a couple seconds of actually giving them that debuff, then you'll become Invis. Also, when you perform a Stylish Execution, your next melee attack while invisible weakens targets. This is really nice too if we're doing a finisher, which is going to work great with our exotic, which I'll mention here in just a minute, and just Withering Blade. For Fragments, we're taking Faceted Bravery, Balance, Purpose, Defiance, and Justice. These really complement each other well. I think they go great with this build. From what I've tested, a lot of different fragments, these work great together. 2 I want to highlight though specifically for this because they matter a lot. Picking up Orb of Power grants us an overshield. This makes us much more tanky, and with the exotic weapon that we're using, we're getting Orbs of Power back, I mean, constantly. It's ridiculous. So having an overshield up all the time is great. Really good for high-end content. And then Defiance. Finishers make targets volatile. This is really, really nice, specifically with this build because we can get up and go Invis. It's a lot easier for us to create finishers, and then to make the targets volatile just helps at clearing even more. It's fantastic. These are the mods we're going to be using. A couple ones on highlight though is Harmonic Siphon or just a Void Siphon mod. This is super important to have because it makes a Sword Graviton Lance, giving these orbs of power back constantly. So freaking nice. Void Loader, really important to have on this build as well. Any resistance mods you want. Absolution is nice too, reducing all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an Orb of Power. Like I said, we're getting Orbs of Power all the time because of Graviton Lance, so really nice to have. And then Reaper's really good too. Shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon, Final Blow, spawns an Orb of Power. This is really good too because it's plating into our Threaded Spectre and the decoy that we spawn when we use our dodge. For artifact mods, these are the ones we're running. A couple ones I want to highlight. Anti-barrier pulse rifle, definitely be picking this up. Radiant orbs, while you have a solar or prismatic subclass equipped, pick up an orb of power grants, makes you radiant, really nice to have. Void homogeny, while you have a void or prismatic subclass equipped, defeating weakened targets provides a small void overshield. Just another source for us to get overshield and be a little bit more tanky. Shield Crush is really nice. While you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. And then while you're Amplified or Radiant, your Grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. Really nice to have. And then Expanding Abyss. Void Sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. Again, from our melee, after becoming Invis, we weaken those targets. It's so nice to have. We're doing even more damage with Void. For our exotic weapon, you probably guessed it, but it's going to be Graviton Lance. It works so well with this build. Guys, if you haven't used this gun this season or ever, definitely do it. It's fantastic. The intrinsic trait makes it so a second shot of a burst rips a hole through space-time, doing high damage and recoil with no fall-off. And then the biggest thing here is the trait Cosmology. This thing is awesome. Kills with this weapon cause enemy targets to detonate and spawn void projectiles that track targets. With volatile rounds that we're also getting to, we're blowing up everything. I mean, this is an ad clearing machine. Not to mention, but it has fantastic damage for bosses too. This thing is just so good, and it plays in this build fantastic. This build wouldn't be nearly as good without this weapon for sure. Definitely carries it. For other weapons, for heavy, I'd probably recommend something with Void as well, especially since we have a Void weapon Surge on. Edge Transit's really good. I've been using that a lot. Hammerhead, anything like that you'd enjoy using. And then for primary, I've really enjoyed any stasis like Riptide, Deliverance, or the Call. The Call is really good too. You can even put a mod on in your head if you want to switch up a heavy ammo or special ammo finder if you don't need that. But for this build, you definitely want to have Graviton Lance. The gameplay loop for this build revolves around controlling the adds with your super melee grenade to then run them down with Graviton Lance. It's our main weapon. It's fantastic for ad clear and generates so many orbs for us and our teammates. Also, the fact that it shoots through Hydra's shield with anti-barrier rounds is fantastic for the new seasonal activities. Use stylish execution whenever you can to go invis for reses, survival, or just to weaken enemies when needed, and finishers whenever possible for Gear Falcons. Pop Prismatic for extra tankiness if you need it, or pump some damage. You get it back incredibly fast with your melee nade and Graviton Lance. You could totally run this build with just Void, but the fragment selection you get, both aspects, Prismatic, and being able to have Duskveiled and Withering Blade for our melee grenade just makes it even better. Highly recommend it. I hope you guys enjoy this simple but very reliable build for so far. Working on some insane builds here for the future on this channel, so keep an eye out for those, and thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next video.